Welcome back to Conservative Cat, the show that doesn't shy away from faith, family, and freedom, and somebody else who doesn't shy away from faith, family, and freedom, Rocío Cleveland. She is a candidate for Congress. You can go read about her policy stances at RocíoClevelandForCongress.com. Rocío, thank you so much for joining the program. And we're going to
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Of course. And I stumbled upon your page. Actually, it was kind of funny. Kat Agabazale. It was running in this Democratic primary, and I'm sure you're up against a primary in your Republican race.
Yes.
But this is in the congressional 9th district there, and we kind of got to chat a little bit. I got to check with your communications director, and there was this weird accusation from Kat Agabale that somebody from your campaign had sent somebody to go vomit outside of her campaign headquarters, and I found that so hilarious. And I was like,
it is
conspiracy theories these people come up with, and we'll get to Kat here in just a second. But
exactly,
kind of met because I went on this wild goose chase, and I was like, there's no way that she actually believes that. And then I go, oh no, she actually believes it.
It's quite comical. It is.
Sending people to go vomit. Now, for people's references, the 9th district, there's a comedy club there. There's some bars and things like that. And it's like Chicago, like towards the Chicago area, where I'm in central Illinois. I did grow up in Will County. But I mean, like, homeless people throwing up in that district, probably not unusual, right? Or growing up, not unusual. But I wanted to talk more about your background. You were telling me before we popped on a little bit about who you are, and I think that our viewers will definitely kind of resonate with that and your background and relate to it. So who are you? Why'd you start running for Congress?
Yes, of course. My name is Rocío Cleveland. If you want to pronounce it in Spanish, it's Rocío. And so I'm very happy and honored to be here. Hello, everyone, and thank you, everyone, for your support. A little bit about my background. I grew up in Illinois in a little town called Mundelein. I was born and raised in Mundelein. And my parents, they're immigrants. They're both Mexican. My mom came from, she was born in a little town called Allende, Coahuila, in Mexico. And my dad was born in Celaya, Guanajuato, which is a little bit south from my mom's hometown. My mom's is a little bit close to the border. And so I grew up in Mundelein, and my parents, they barely even spoke English. My mom would go to night school at Mundelein High School so she could learn English. And it was very, very hard for her. They sacrificed it all for us. My dad, when we were little, we attended public school for like about a year. He didn't like the progress that we needed, the progress that he saw. And so he's like, nope, I'm pulling my kids out. My dad was a landscaper. My mom worked at Baxter. And I mean, they worked tirelessly. And they wanted a better future for us because in Mexico, they didn't have the opportunities that we have here in America. And I feel so blessed to have had, to have parents like them who literally, it was blood, sweat, and tears to be able to afford to send us to a private school. The three of us attended Santa Maria del Popolo, which is a Catholic school in Mundelein. And if it wasn't for that, I probably would have been so lost. I remember at Santa Maria, the nuns would tell us that abortion was bad and that we must always be pro-life. And I so strongly believed in that. And I remember my mom once joking around. She said, if any of my daughters ever get pregnant out of wedlock, she's like, and you don't want to have that child, she's like, no daughter of mine will ever have an abortion. I will tie you to that bed and you will have that baby because you will have that baby. Like there was no choice in the matter. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad that my mom instilled that in me. During a very, very young age. And then fast forward to high school, I chose to attend Mundelein High School. Unfortunately, I didn't want to go to Carmel because I did like the arts program at Mundelein High School, which was a little bit more, there were a little bit more options as far as like photography and taking fashion design and things that I really enjoyed. And so I attended Mundelein High School, not knowing how toxic public schools could be. It literally took 1 year for them to indoctrinate me. And I remember the teachers saying we couldn't talk about God. And I was confused because this is something that in a Catholic school we prayed, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. The minute we get there, someone passed away in our community, in our family, the church family, we would pray for them. We would go to the chapel and we would pray for them. And we would attend funeral services for people in the community. And I was like, wow, okay. And I was like, okay, so I guess I need to do as I'm told. And I was so timid. I didn't quite advocate for myself very well. I was labeled as, by the teachers, I was labeled as the student who would never whine or complain. I mean, now I do. Now I actually am very outspoken. And praise God for that. And so, I mean, it truly was a long journey. And like I said, my faith journey throughout high school was literally a roller coaster, if I could explain it. Here I am coming in, entering a public school, not believing in God. And then all of a sudden they're telling me, okay, stop talking about God. And then you have students who are like Satanists, and then you have like different, faiths, which is fine. I respect all faiths, and I have friends of all faiths too. And I was so confused, and I'm like, well, maybe there isn't a God. Mm-hmm. So I was like, okay, well, maybe I'm agnostic. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, I don't believe in God. But like I said, throughout high school, it was very confusing. And I think you're starting to learn who you are. And you also want to fit in, right? When you're a teenager. And I think there was a little bit of that. And then once I attended a community college. I did help take care of my parents because both of them suffer from chronic illness. And I realized how much family like really means. My parents, all the sacrifice that they did for us, that I had to pay it forward and help care for them. And to be quite honest, I was raised as a Democrat, by my parents. And if it wasn't for, fast forward 2022, I believe it was, when Mark Curran ran for Lake County Sheriff, I remember him telling me how he was pro-life. And at that moment, I was like, well, why is he pro-life? Because here I am, Rocío, like a young adult, still brainwashed. Mm-hmm. And it was like a battle between good and evil, because yes, I was going to a church, I was attending a church, and we were told, yeah, abortion is bad. But then here I had all these thoughts that were implanted in me from public school. And I was like, oh, but, what if a woman is sexually assaulted? And I can say, like, as a survivor of sexual assault to this day, I believe that if I would have been impregnated, I would have had that child, because I wouldn't have been the victim twice, the victim of sexual assault, and then and being the victim, living with that trauma and that regret of having an abortion. Mm-hmm. And so I would have rather been the victor. And I also believe, as far as abortion, sometimes, in some cases, the father doesn't have a choice because the woman decides to have an abortion. And I believe that men should have rights too. And I believe we need to change those laws, because I believe if the mom doesn't want the baby, what about the dad? If the dad wants that baby, that father should have a right, just how that father should have the right to see their children if they were to divorce or whatnot. And if the father would want to keep that baby, there needs to be some kind of accord where the dad also has rights.
Yeah.
Because he also created that baby. It takes two to conceive. And I think that's one law that I would like to pass, one bill, giving male fathers more rights. I think it should be equal.
Yeah.
As a woman, I believe it should be equal. And so, again, back to Mark Curran. So I do thank Mark Curran for bringing me back to the initial beliefs that my parents instilled in me. And I always thank Mark, because if it wasn't for him, I probably wouldn't be as bright and bold as I am now, as far as that topic. Yeah, and I became a Republican thanks to Mark Curran.
Yeah. Well, and what an inspiring story. Thank you so much for sharing all of your personal story. I think a lot of our viewers could relate to that. I know I do. People, they always are like, you worked for NPR? That's crazy. And I said, yes, I did for 2 years. And I had a similar story, right after graduation, as soon as I, had left, gone to community college myself, I turned away from God. I turned away from my faith. It was just a complete mess, my life. And then I went to actually a TPUSA, Turning Point USA. It was a America Fest type thing. And I went there and I heard some of the speakers and I was like, man, this is really changing my perspective on what I was told. I mean, in public school, and I went to a small town public school, and right in the middle of a cornfield. You wouldn't think that the indoctrination goes on there, but it's really fascinating. I look at back, so the slogan was bleed black and gold. We were the Comets, right? That was our mascot. And, on its face, you're like, okay, it seems harmless, but really what they were, saying was that, hey, school's pretty important. That, unity here in this public school setting is very important, so much to the point where we want you to bleed black and gold, like through and through. And, at that age, I think it's really important we start teaching children that, hey, the family unit is something that's very important. God, your faith, something that should be in you and through you. And this is something that takes priority over even your schooling, which
yes, amen. God should always be first. God is always first.
Yeah, and it was almost like a doctrine, like, and I didn't see it until I got older, until my brain developed a little bit, right?
Right.
Such as indoctrination. So, really fascinating story. And the fact that you are a Mexican immigrant and your parents came here from Mexico, I think that you can really speak to what's going on right now as far as the LA riots. And it's really exciting to hear that you're going to pass a bill, and you probably will have luck at a federal level. At the state level, it's kind of impossible, I would say.
Yeah, I understand. Oh, and just a correction. So my parents were immigrants. I was born and raised here in America.
In America, okay.
Yes, I'm an American. Yeah.
And you were born.
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, in Illinois, the abortion thing, you're an uphill battle if you at a state level, where it's like, I mean, we're at a point now where 12-year-olds can go and sign up for those medical abortion pills. They're killing kids.
It's so sad.
And
so in Chicago, there's a Christian organization that's called Love Life. And they literally stand outside of abortion clinics, and their signs say Love Life, and they preach to women coming in to get an abortion, and then the women that leave also after an abortion. They have saved so many babies' lives. Just praying for them. And some have repented. Some have accepted Jesus Christ in their lives. They've also connected them to different services in order for moms to either give their child up for adoption or to help them with financial, any financials, whether it be formula, whether it be ultrasounds, whether it be vitamins, diapers, whatever the baby's needs are, and the mom's needs. And I believe that it's so important to be involved, because if we say that we are pro-life, okay, you could talk all you want, right? But until we put that action behind our words, then that means you really are pro-life. Like, like walkathons, participating in walkathons, participating maybe in galas, volunteering. There's a little store by my home where all donations and all the proceeds are given to Save Babies, and the mom is given the first ultrasound. And usually they come in wanting to abort their baby. And once they hear that, that heartbeat, boy, it changes their mind.
Yeah, these pregnant resources, they do incredible work, and it's really God's work, saving lives.
Yeah.
But yeah, putting action behind your words, and I feel like a lot of Illinois, maybe even Republicans, they have felt like this is an issue that you shy away from. Clearly, within the 10 minutes we've been talking, you're not shy.
It's so important, because I believe that God doesn't make mistakes. I believe in the sanctity of life. If God gave us our life, then God will take away our life too, right? When he chooses to, not when we choose to take someone else's life. That's murder. That's purposely murdering.
Yeah.
And I understand, like, okay, if it's self-defense and if someone's about to kill you, okay, so killing, that's different. But then murder is intentional. And I think as conservatives, we need to be a little bit more bold about it. They're like, oh no, Rocío, don't talk about that topic. You will lose. And I'm like, okay, then so be it. But I'm going to stand my ground by my religious beliefs, by my principles and ethics. And I will never, ever shy away from saving a child's life. Because if I don't talk about this, then that means other women probably won't talk about it, and men too. Men feel so uncomfortable talking about this issue, and I feel we need to shed a light on it, because in order for Illinois to flip, we need a revival, and I believe that we need a revival in the Illinois GOP party too, because we can't be here as conservatives pointing the finger, oh, the Democrats this, the Democrats that, when we need to be pointing the finger at us too. In creating a party where we are unified, protecting babies and the sanctity of life. Because if we don't vocalize that and stand for what we truly believe in, and other things, that Democrats are attacking us, then it's like we stand for nothing. And I believe, God comes first, and we must be obedient to God and what his commandments are.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know do you have children?
I don't have children. No, I don't. I was a paraprofessional. I still am a paraprofessional at a high school. I feel, I have the heart of a mother. And so I've mothered so many children.
I can tell that you were in work, because I definitely get that from you. You give me very motherly vibes. And
thank you.
There is a population crisis. And I think that's another part of Illinois' problem. We've got this mass exodus of people, but if we were to start having children and, raise our children up to believe that, hey, yeah, life matters and families matter and God matters, I think that we wouldn't be having this crisis either.
You're right. And also, in addition to that, I want this message to be to any woman that is listening right now. If you are struggling whether to keep your baby or not, I ask you this: think about it, pray about it. And if you really want to have an abortion, email me, send me an email, because guess what? I will adopt your baby. This is how passionate I am. I will adopt your baby. Even if it's twins or triplets, I will adopt your baby or babies. So I'm not a person that just talks just to talk, to move my lips, right? Yeah. I'm a person of action and integrity. Yeah. And I care about your baby. So email me. If you want to talk, email me, and I will give you my personal phone number, and we will talk about it. I will even pray for you. I will even meet you where you're at. It doesn't matter. I will do anything and everything to save a baby's life.
Yeah. That's so admirable. Rocío Cleveland, we're chatting with her. She's running for Congress. One of the most inspiring candidates I think I've ever interviewed. I'm going to be honest with you.
I'm humbled. Thank you.
So I do want to get to the immigration issue. Yes, 100% abortion. Republicans shouldn't shy away from that because we are in a population crisis. If we don't fix that, if we're not going to have revival, we're never going to win. We're never going to change this country, change the state. Also, they prey on women, don't they? I mean, it's absolutely insane. The whole my choice thing. These women are vulnerable. They're pregnant. They're going through a lot of changes hormonally. I don't have children either, but from my best friend, she tells me all the time, yeah, it's just a huge change. And when you go through something physical, and this is a person of faith, your spirit man, it starts to because you're so focused on the physical, and your spirit man isn't alive, and they prey on women in that vulnerable state. I think when that physical change starts to happen and they say, take control of your body, don't allow these changes to happen, and you're in charge of these changes, and I think that is just so evil, where they try to prey on women in a vulnerable state. And you ask one woman in a first trimester, just ask any woman who's in her first trimester, they're going to tell you, oh man, I wish I wasn't pregnant, because they're in a physical state of being sick, not feeling well, right?
Sure, yeah.
And when you prey on women who are in a physical state, pain, in some cases, it's just so disgusting. I do want to get to immigration. Let me play this chat clip.
Of course.
Her Instagram.
Wait, I should have prepared. I should have made some popcorn. Comical.
My favorite things now. I go on her Instagram and I just watch them because they just
comedy show.
I know. Take a listen.
Jerry Springer. It's like a mash of both.
Yeah, here we go.
I'm running for Congress in the 9th District of Illinois. And last night at 3 a.m., Elon Musk was tweeting about me. Why? Because he's mad that I think healthcare is a human right and that people don't deserve to die because they can't afford to go to a hospital. Apparently, that's suicidal empathy. What I think is suicidal is the fact that Elon Musk has millions of American Social Security data. What I think is suicidal is the fact that he fired the workers responsible for overseeing the safety of our nuclear weapons.
Okay, so there she talks mainly about the immigration issue, and she was on CNN, and she had mentioned that she believes that illegal immigrants, and this is going to be an amazing perspective because your parents immigrated here. She says that illegal immigrants, healthcare, that's taxpayer-funded healthcare. They should be afforded or given that. Now, as a Republican, as a child of immigrants from Mexico,
yes,
your thoughts here on illegal immigration, what's going on in the country, maybe even the LA riots, Agapazale's position that healthcare is a right. Your thoughts there?
Yes, I can share. My dad came to the United States. He tried to come to the United States 3 times, and his 3rd time, he was successful. My dad, he was an illegal immigrant. That's something that I share publicly. I'm not ashamed of my dad, of all his stripes. And he met my mom here in Illinois. My grandpa, my maternal grandpa, he had amnesty when he was younger, and he came to Chicago and he worked at a Levi's factory making jeans. He became an orphan at a very young age. So his mom was absolutely gorgeous. And my great grandfather was murdered by the mayor of the town that they lived in because she was so beautiful. And this mayor thought that my great grandmother would marry him if and so then years later she had the Spanish influenza and she passed away. So my grandpa applied for amnesty. He came here to Illinois, and he had so many siblings, and he came here to provide for them. He left all of his dreams behind. He wanted to be a doctor. He wanted to be an engineer. But instead, he worked tirelessly 6 days a week. And he was the type of man that would never miss church, just like my late father. He would never miss church every single Sunday. And sometimes he's like, yeah, there were days when I had to go to work on Sunday because I had to feed my siblings who were in Mexico. And so I see both sides. My dad came to the United States as an illegal immigrant, and my mom, was here legally. And so I see both sides. And I feel that immigrants should not be receiving medical care. We should not have to pay for illegal immigrants for their medical care, because if we're not paying for our own veterans and taking care of our own veterans and people who are homeless on the streets, like the people that Kat is saying, there's all of these people that are attacking her. Well, no one is attacking her from my campaign or my fans or whatnot. It's the homeless crisis that these radical Democrats have created in Illinois because of their failed policies. And this is why I want to run to change this. And I believe that veterans should be taken care of first. And I believe that all Americans should be taken care of first. There have been times where, myself or other individuals or even my neighbors have struggled with healthcare and not being able to provide and have the healthcare that they want, and needing to have a second job just to put food on the table, and let alone pay for these ridiculous health insurance policies. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, well, what about us? What about Americans? Like, if I were a mom, I wouldn't go feeding everybody else's children in the neighborhood. No, I would feed my child first, because that's my child. And I think that's where these Democrat cities and states have failed, by not taking care of our own first. You don't see like me going to Mexico or any other country and they're paying for my medical care, because if that were the case, we would all be fleeing to different countries, right? No one is picking the tab for us. So why should we, as hardworking Americans, be picking up, the tab for that when we're already like trillions of dollars in debt? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And if Kat feels so inclined by paying for illegal aliens medical care, then perhaps she should pay it out of her own pocket. Yeah, with all the money that, maybe the 10% commission that she should give me because she's using my name for donations. Maybe my 10% should be, paid for illegal immigrants' healthcare. How about that, Kat?
Yeah.
And I think Kat should keep Elon's name out of her mouth, because she's just trying to be relevant. Which is great, more to her. She's a beautiful woman. And she's a pretty good journalist, but I also think she should speak with truth. And if she's going to stand by something, then yes, I urge her to please donate all of her campaign money and pay for every single illegal immigrant in Rogers Park and the surrounding areas, every single illegal immigrant's healthcare, and pick up their health bills and medications that live in the 9th Congressional District. So go ahead, Kat.
Yeah.
Please entertain us.
Well, and, I think that maybe it comes from a place where, we are a Christian nation. We were built on Christian, Judeo-Christian values. And people, I think, mistakenly think that the Bible is pro illegal immigration and pro like letting people into your house because America is our home. And, you wouldn't let somebody come in your front door and just raid your refrigerator, right?
Yeah, absolutely not.
The Bible is very pro-sovereignty, very pro-sovereignty. It doesn't mean that you completely neglect your foreigners or your neighbors. It doesn't mean you do that. We do have things like visas, and I don't know. So your mother was a legal immigrant.
Yes.
My father was illegal. And I'm not saying that there aren't good people who are here. Your father, one of them, working day in, day out, had a tougher go at it because of his illegal status.
Yeah.
But then maybe somebody here on a work visa had a tougher go because of that illegal status. But your mother, so was she here on like a visa, or she was here?
My mom, since my grandpa had amnesty, he became a citizen, and all her siblings became citizens too. And then when my parents were married, then my dad did get a green card.
Yeah. Wow. So it's a really interesting perspective you have, because you see both sides of this. So I do think that there are illegal immigrants out there who are doing this, working day in, day out. Levi's factor, you're like your great
like my dad, and my dad never took one penny for any medical care, not even food stamps. There was times when we were really struggling because he was a landscaper, so he didn't have work from like November to like February because he worked outdoors, and obviously he would snowplow and things like that. But I mean, we were really struggling, and my mom worked at Baxter. She worked in the factory at Baxter. She worked second shift, and sometimes she would have to pick up extra shifts just to put food on the table. And they didn't have this elaborate education. My dad only went to school up to 6th grade, and then my mom did preparatory school, which was probably about, I don't know, I would say like sophomore in high school, because Mexico is different based on education. And so they didn't attend college or anything, and they did it on their own, out of that sacrifice, out of wanting to succeed. And they both loved this country. I mean, my dad passed away, but they had a love for our country. I remember, I think my favorite moment in time, like as a family unit, was on the 4th of July. Oh, I'm going to get a little emotional. So we would sit on our front yard with those like 80s chairs. They had like the little lines and stripes or whatnot.
Yeah.
And we would watch the fireworks as a family together. And my dad, he would always call me baby, even as an adult. He's like, baby, if it wasn't for America, he's like, I probably wouldn't be alive, and my siblings either, because I took care of them. He's like, we were starving. Our next meal was never promised. And so my dad instilled in us to be proud that we were Americans, and to respect our country, and to love our country. And I think when my husband Brett proposed, we were thinking of the date, and then we looked at each other. My husband, he's a little bit of a pyromaniac, I must admit that. And he is. I'll throw it out there. And I always love the 4th of July and fireworks. And I remember Cinderella had fireworks at her wedding, and I always wanted that. And we looked at each other like, 4th of July wedding. And yes, we had a 4th of July wedding. It was spectacular. It was beautiful. We had 3 fireworks shows, the 3 surrounding cities. So Vernon Hills, Mundelein, and Libertyville. We saw the fireworks from all 3 locations, and our whole wedding, it was just, it was absolutely beautiful. And so, yeah, I wouldn't have changed anything. The 4th of July is such a wonderful day for us, and it means so much.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. Well, and then your dad
is everything.
I don't think that your dad would have been the type of person of what we're seeing right now in LA, where you've got the Mexican flag on the backs of motorcycles. They're driving around on dirt bikes, masked, lighting cop cars on fire, throwing bricks at people who are just driving by. I'm sure you've seen the videos.
Oh yeah, that's quite embarrassing. And for me, it is so embarrassing to see that. This is why my dad decided that we needed to go to a private school, because he saw some family members and some of his friends who had, boys that were starting to wear their pants down, like below their tush, showing the underwear, dressing a little more gangster, and just all the words that would come out of their mouth, and affiliated with certain gangs and groups or whatnot. And my dad's like, no, absolutely not. He's like, I didn't sacrifice all of this coming to the United States and working my tail off for my children to be like that. And so my dad didn't want us hanging around with some of his friends, like children, I guess you could say, and maybe even some family members. My dad really, like, we were very sheltered. And he's like, absolutely not. My children will not act like that. And I remember one time, like, I said a potty word to a neighbor, and my dad's like, oh no. He's like, I'm so embarrassed. You better go apologize. He's like, absolutely not. And yeah, and I remember, like, wow. Yeah.
Well, and I'll share with you, we're in Central Illinois, Normal, Illinois.
Yeah.
Graduation. I'm a youth leader. I was watching some of my youth group kids graduate.
Oh, so nice. Yeah.
And you know, I like, my stomach sank when I saw this. It was a girl, and she doesn't know any better because, like me, we were indoctrinated. She walks across the stage. I'm not kidding you, Rocío. She takes out an American flag and starts waving it around like crazy, drapes herself in, or an American flag, Mexican flag. It was a Mexican flag. She starts taking it and waving it around, wraps herself in it, and throws her fists up in the air. And I can't help, when I'm watching the Mexican flag all around, you know, LA, and the burning of American flags going on, the stomping, there's videos like that coming out, and I'm just like, man, I mean, I like, not trying to disparage Mexico at all, but it's like, I can't believe that this isn't considered some sort of insurrection where you've got, you know, people who are carrying this flag. And it starts at a very young age, I think, that social indoctrinating, where you don't have people here in America who are willing to say, no, you don't do that. You don't burn the American flag. People like your dad actually saying, no, respect America. We don't have that population anymore. So you got like a recipe for disaster, kids that are social activists and hate their country, flying Mexican flags at the graduation, right? And then you've got illegal immigrants who weren't like your dad here and who are like thugs, don't respect America at all. So that is like a recipe for disaster. And I don't know, I think we're dealing with something, maybe, I don't know, here in America, it just doesn't feel like, and maybe there are definitely illegal immigrants like your dad who are, you know, sending money back home to Mexico to feed the family. But I feel like there is like this uplifting that's going on of illegal immigrants, period. And even if they are gangsters or human smugglers, Gilmar Abrego Garcia, you know, had the MS13 on his knuckles. Trump called that out. I feel like we're dealing with a much different animal than the illegal immigrant who was your dad, who would be, yes, we should have given this guy citizenship. You know, that's what I'm saying. And I don't know. I just think that we're dealing with a totally different animal.
I agree. And I feel, you know, as an American with Mexican roots, I mean, I hate to say this, but it embarrasses me because they do not represent me or, you know, my parents, like how my parents instilled us in my family. That's something that we would have never done. My dad always had, you know, the American flag and the Mexican flag. But they instilled in us that America was the country of freedom. And at a very young age, I always loved America. And to this day, I always say America is the best country in the world. And if it wasn't for America, other countries wouldn't be prosperous. So if America falls, the whole world falls. And that truly is a fact, and I believe it. And I mean, what other country has so many freedoms?
Yeah.
What other country has freedom of speech? What other country, you know, allows us to have our guns? I mean, for crying out loud. Like my dad, he did share a story when they were in Mexico, the government took away their guns. And some people would hide their guns underground or whatnot, which was popular. And my dad said, wow, he's like, all of a sudden, the Mexican government and the police became the cartels, and the people were unarmed. They only had knives or whatever, you know, little weapons. It's like, how are you going to defend yourself when these militia and police officers are part of the cartel and they have these AK-47s and like big guns, right? Like military. How do you defend yourself? You don't. They kidnap you. They kidnap your family. They kidnap your women and your daughters, and they SA the females and even the males, and they will decapitate you and they hang you on the bridges so that you learn your lesson. And then some people are viciously murdered with their finger like that on their mouth, saying, "Hey, be quiet, be quiet." And those are like threats. They burn homes. They terrorize families. If you have a business, if your business is succeeding or it's not succeeding, they want a certain percentage. They want a certain cut of what you are making. And if you don't give them that, guess what? Your family is going to suffer. You'll get a finger cut off. Yeah. Wow. And they'll make your bodies disappear. They do what's called the acid bath. And they put people in an acid bath and they viciously kill them. Like, this is barbaric. And so people don't understand the severity of this. And I let a lot of my friends here in Illinois know about maybe 3-4 years ago that they were already coming, all of these gangsters like MS13. And so there's a location in Waukegan where they would have like Greyhound buses. And they would bring people from like different countries. And so I would just like kind of follow the buses and just look at all the stops. And they were dropped off at certain locations. And then you would see children that weren't accompanied, like no parent, no adult or anything. And then sometimes with like an odd like man that didn't even look like them. And I'm like, okay, this isn't right. And I've always been about protecting children and being the voice of the children. Children have always been my soft spot. And I'm like, okay, well, this is like child trafficking, the kidnapping. What are they doing to this child? And then there's also a lot of organ harvesting too, as well as child sacrifices. So what people don't understand, and maybe some do, MS13, the cartels, the Tren de Aragua, they are satanic and they sacrifice children. And typically it's babies. It's the younger, the better. Because what hurts God the most? Babies. Yeah. Babies hurts God the most. And so they go for the vulnerable. And they believe that if they sacrifice a child, then they're given more strength, more power. And they praise Satan. And they also praise what's called La Santa Muerte, there are tattoos that you can see. I'm go ahead and pull one up so you can somehow see what it looks like. And I want your viewers and your followers to see this, because anyone who has the Santa Muerte tattoo, they are most likely gang affiliated with the Tren de Aragua, any cartel, whether it be Mexico, South America, Central America, and MS13. So this is these are some of the tattoos of La Santa Muerte.
Okay, yeah, I've seen those. When the Homeland Department of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, had those.
And if you see one like this, where they try to depict La Santa Muerte as like La Virgen de Guadalupe, the Virgin of Guadalupe, like where she has like her cloth or whatnot, her headpiece. And so they do that. So if you see that, then that's a gang from Mexico. But then there's others. And I think people need to know, because once you see people who have these tattoos, and you need to be a little bit more cautious, because they're moving into your neighborhoods. They're moving into your schools. And what's happening, a lot of these newcomers that are the students that are going to high school or middle school, they're actually being trafficked. And so in Illinois, illegals can go to school, right? And so you have students who carry two phones. Usually it's a bright phone, like a bright red or bright yellow. And what is that? Well, their handler has them selling drugs on campuses. And so they have one, their trafficking phone, and the other one is their personal phone. And they don't have trackers. So it's one of those phones that you just like throw out, and there's no way to like track where these drug deals are occurring. And so these students sell drugs on campus, and sometimes they walk outside of the campus and they sell the drugs, outside, or, after lunch, during lunch hours for high schoolers. And this is what's happening. This is, the drug epidemic that we're seeing, the fentanyl epidemic here in Illinois, but all the other states, but most importantly, all the liberal states. And they don't see the severity in this. Like, we need tight borders. It's been happening for years. And finally, we are starting to see it because of Biden. He just, it was a free for all.
Yeah.
And look at where we're at now. And now this is going to take a monumental amount of money to clean up every single state, to clean up all of America, because they've infiltrated everything.
Yeah. It's going to be a mess that we've got to clean up. And I think that you're going to clean up that mess when you're elected to Congress.
It will be my pleasure.
Rocío Cleveland, thank you so much for joining me. That's going to be it. But tell us how we can find out more about you and where we can go to donate.
Yes, you could go to my website, which is RocíoClevelandForCongress.com. And you could go ahead and click on there and learn a little bit more about me. And please donate. We need donations desperately. It's a very hard district to win, but I believe that all things are possible with God by our side. And I believe that if we work together and that we pray and we repent and we give it all to God, I believe there could be a revival here in Illinois and throughout all the United States and the world. I believe we need to fall back in our beliefs and turn to God if we want this world to be a better place, not just for us, but for the children.
Amen.
Because they're our future.
Yeah, that's exactly why, the world exists. I think that the world goes round because of children. We're obligated to help this generation and have a place of faith, family, and freedom for them in the future. So I appreciate you. Thank you so much for joining me. And folks,
thank you so much.
You've been listening to Conservative Cat, and be sure to go to RocíoClevelandForCongress.com